A hand has been reaching for the weight on your shoulders inside the pit you keep slipping back into, and the hand is mine. Not a metaphor, not a memory, not a hand belonging to someone who failed you once. Mine, extended into the very situation that has been swallowing your ankles for months. Right now, before these few minutes are over, allow me to show you why the rescue you have been begging for has felt so slow. And let me read you a sentence I once gave to a young man who was hiding from a king and pretending to be insane, a sentence built for the moment a tired soul is sure no one heard the cry. A hand was reaching for you before you knew the pit had a name. I see you. The mother whose marriage has been pulling her under for years, and who keeps explaining to her friends why she has not yet left, even as she sinks an inch deeper every conversation. I am near. A father whose business has been quietly drowning for 18 months has not been overlooked. And the chair he sits in at 4 in the morning to look at the numbers is a chair I have sat down next to many times. The young one in the room whose addiction has not been the one anyone notices, because it does not look like the addictions her family was trained to spot, has not been alone in that room. The older one whose grief over a son's choices has become a quicksand the rest of the family has stopped trying to pull him out of. I never stopped trying. Each of those situations is real. Each of those rooms is a room I have been inside. The neighbor whose anxiety has had a hand on her throat since the diagnosis came back. A cousin 2 cities over whose loneliness has become a swamp he no longer remembers entering. A friend whose debt has begun to feel less like a problem and more like a climate. A coworker whose unraveling marriage has cost him the ability to sleep on his back because the chest only loosens enough for shallow breathing on the side now. None of these are abstractions. Every name is held. Every name has been spoken in the upper room of my house this hour. Your morning prayer has grown shorter, not because you stopped wanting me, but because asking the same thing one more time and hearing nothing back has begun to feel like rubbing salt into the place that is already raw. I am not impatient with you. I am tender about the slowness. There is a difference between a father who notices the sinking and a father who is annoyed about how long it has taken the sinking one to call out. And I am not the second kind. The slowness of your rescue has never been a measure of my distance from your situation. The slowness has been the way bedrock comes up under a buried foot. Pit floors come up gradually. The hand has been on your wrist the whole stretch. Place one foot flat on the floor underneath you, and let the floor press back against the sole. Just 1 foot. Notice how the floor returns the pressure you give it, without negotiation, without checking your worthiness, without asking what kind of week you have had. The floor holds, because that is what floors do. Stay with the foot for a few extra seconds. A body remembers what a mind forgets. The floor pressing up under you is a small daily echo of the bedrock that is pressing up under everything you cannot see. A long stretch of your inner life has been spent inside a single question. Is he going to do something? 6 words on a loop in the chest at 3 in the morning, at the red light, in the shower, in the pew. Honest words. They are not faithless words. They are what a soul asks when it has been under the same water for too many seasons and has begun to wonder whether help has any intention of arriving. Allow me to answer without dismissing the asking. I am doing something. I have been doing it. The doing has not had the shape you were watching for. You have been scanning the horizon for an event, a single dramatic reversal that would announce itself with thunder and end the situation in one Tuesday afternoon. My doing is rarely a single Tuesday afternoon. My doing is most often a hand under your elbow across 1,000 small Tuesdays, each one keeping you upright when the suction of the pit was strong enough to take you down to the bottom. The fact that you are still standing inside this hour to ask the question is part of the doing. Strength inside the next breath you are about to take is the doing. A chest that opened this video instead of closing it forever is the doing. My quiet work has been happening at a frequency your eyes were not trained to see. This dread that the rescue will not come did not assemble itself inside you on its own. It was passed down. A child learns to brace for the rescue not coming because in some early room, the rescue did not come. A parent stayed out late. A teacher looked the other way. A sibling laughed instead of helping. Each small unrescued moment in childhood wires the body to expect, in adulthood, that the cry will rise and the ceiling will absorb it. So your nervous system is not being faithless when it doubts the help is on its way. Your nervous system is repeating the only data it was given. Allow me to lay down newer data right beside the old. You were also taught, somewhere across the road of your formation, that I rescue the deserving ones first. That if you had been a better believer, the help would have come faster. That the people whose situations turn around quickly are the ones whose faith was stronger, and the people whose situations grind on are the ones whose faith was weaker. You absorbed that math without anyone needing to write it on a board. It became a quiet sentence at the bottom of your chest. He is taking this long because of something wrong with me. That math has never been mine. It has never described how I rescue. A picture of me you have been carrying, a foreman with a clipboard checking which sinking soul has earned the lifeline this week, was drawn by pencils that were never in my hand. Some of those drawers loved you in their way and were repeating an image their own teacher had handed them. Others used the image deliberately to keep you trying harder, giving more, donating to systems that promised faster rescue in exchange for faster offerings. Either origin produced the same falsified portrait, and that portrait has cost you years of inner peace inside the very seasons when I have been most actively at work in your life. Slide the portrait face down for now. I will describe how I actually pull a person out. A rescue from heaven rarely arrives the way a Hollywood rescue arrives. No slow motion shot, no swelling string section. Most often a rescue from me is a hand that arrived years before you noticed it had arrived, working in the dark beneath the situation, weakening the grip of what was holding you long before the moment of the visible lift. By the time the lift becomes visible, the actual rescue has been in progress for an extended stretch. You do not remember the years of underwater work because you could not see them. Credit goes to the lift. Yet the lift is only the final inch. An arm extended toward you in this very minute has been extended toward you for longer than you've been aware of being in trouble. Reread that line if you need to. My palm was open before the diagnosis was a word in your mouth, before the marriage began to slip, before the bank balance became a knot in your stomach, before the child wandered. Mine has been the arm outstretched the entire stretch, and the stretching did not begin in the moment of your crisis. The stretching began in the moment of my choosing you, which was older than the crisis by an unspeakable margin. Bring your hand up under your ribs, just at the curve where the diaphragm sits. Hold the breath you are taking for one slow count. 1, that is all. Then let it leave gently, without forcing the exhale. Notice how the chest softens a 1/4 inch on its own once the held breath releases. That small softening is your body recognizing a hand it had not yet allowed itself to feel. The hand has been there. Your body knew before your mind did. Trust the body's noticing this once. Walk with me now into a song I once gave to a young man who had been on the run for so long that his nervous system had stopped knowing what safety felt like. He had been promised a kingdom by a prophet years before. He had been a shepherd. He had played the harp in the court of a king who had then turned and tried to spear him to the wall during a private concert. He had been hunted across the desert for years. By the time the events of this particular song took place, he was so far past the end of his strength that he did something no respectable warrior in his tradition would have ever recorded in a public document. He was running from his own people, and he crossed into the territory of a foreign king named Achish of Gath, the very city that had produced Goliath, the giant he had killed years earlier as a boy. The servants of Achish recognized him immediately. They went to their king and said, "This is the man whose victory songs include the line that he killed his 10,000s. The young man heard them say it. He understood, in that small, overheard sentence, that his life had reached an end he could not negotiate his way out of. He had no army. He had no friend in the room. He had no plan. So he made himself look insane. He scratched at the doors of the gate. He let saliva run down into his beard. He banged his head against the walls of the guardroom. He performed madness in front of a foreign king so convincingly that the king turned to his servants and said, 'Do I not have enough madmen of my own already, that you would bring another one into my house?' The king released him. The young man stumbled out of the city alive, walked into a cave called Adullam, and sat down to compose the song I'm bringing you to now. The song does not open with the king he tricked. The song opens with me. He could have written, 'I escaped by my wits.' He could have written, 'I outsmarted them with the saliva trick.' He did not. He sat down inside that cave and wrote, 'I sought the Lord, and he answered me.' 11 verses in, he set down the sentence I want you to hear now. Psalm chapter 34, verse 17. When the righteous cry for help, the Lord hears and delivers them out of all their troubles. Move through it slowly with me. Each phrase carries more weight than a fast reading can lift off the page. Hear the first phrase. He does not say, "When the perfect ones cry for help." He does not say, "When the dignified ones cry for help." He does not say, "When the impressive ones cry for help." The righteous, in his vocabulary, were the ones who turned toward me with their honest cry, including the cry of a man with spit on his face and dignity in the dust behind him. Righteousness here is not the polished performance of an admired believer. Righteousness here is the small, unimpressive act of turning the head toward me from inside the situation that is currently humiliating you. That counts. That counted for him. That counts for you. The Lord hears. Read the second phrase. Hears. Not may hear, not is likely to hear if the cry is loud enough. Not will hear once the petitioner has cleaned up first. Hears. The verb is settled. It has no asterisk. There is no clause attached that would allow it to be true only on some Wednesdays. Every cry of a soul turning toward me has reached me intact, yours included. The ones spoken at 3 a.m. into a pillow nobody else could hear. The ones murmured in a parking lot, because the inside of the car was the only place you could let the wail come up. The ones that were not even words yet, only a tightening of the chest, with my name almost forming on the tongue. All of them reached me. None of them got lost in the transmission and delivers them. Read the third phrase. The verb is active. It is not tries to deliver. It is not considers delivering if the situation calls for it. Delivers. Heaven is in motion the moment the cry leaves you. You have been picturing my hearing of your prayer as if it were a letter sitting on a desk waiting for a reply. The hearing of your prayer is itself the first step of the deliverance. The two are not separate events. The moment the cry registers in the upper room, the rescue begins to move through the lower rooms. You do not always see it begin. The body of the rescue is often miles ahead of the visible part of the rescue by the time the visible part of the rescue arrives. Out of all their troubles, read the final phrase. He does not say, out of the trouble of your choosing. He does not say, out of the trouble you have ranked as most urgent. All. The plural is intentional. He had several troubles when he wrote this. A king who still wanted him dead, a band of distressed and indebted men who had begun gathering to him in the cave, a future throne he could not see the road to, a body running on sleeplessness and adrenaline for months. All of them. Plural. The deliverance he was singing about was not surgical. It was a rescue that addressed the whole tangle, even the parts of the tangle he could not name yet. That is the kind of rescue I work. I do not deliver one strand and leave the rest knotted around your ankles. I unravel the tangle. It takes time. It also gets done. He did not write the sentence as a theorist. He wrote it as a man who had just walked out of Gath alive with spit drying on his chin. He had felt the hand under his elbow in the very moment he was performing madness for a foreign king. He had felt the hand again in the cave at Adullam. He had felt the hand many times across the next 10 years of his life, in caves and cliff faces and battles. Before he ever sat on the throne he had been promised. He wrote the sentence because he had data. Personal, embarrassing, unglamorous data. The data of a saved man who knew how unimpressive the moment of saving had often looked from the inside. He also wrote, a few songs later, that I had drawn him up out of the pit of destruction and set his feet upon a rock. Two of those small images stitched together, the pit and the rock. He had been in the bottom of something he could not climb out of, and I had not lowered a ladder. I had reached down. I had taken him under the arms. I had pulled him up onto ground he did not have to keep treading water on. That is the same shape of rescue I am working in your life right now, even on the days the work is happening below the visible line. Look again at the question I opened these few minutes with. Why has the rescue felt so slow? Here is the answer. Because the rescue is not a single moment. It is a long, patient lifting. A pit dug over years does not have its floor raised in an afternoon. The hand has been on your wrist since before you knew you were sinking. The lift has been in progress every day you have remained upright inside a situation that was strong enough to break a weaker person. The visible inch of the lift will come. Many of you are closer to it than you imagine. The invisible inches that have already happened are why the visible inch will not feel like a shock when it arrives. Whichever word here is reaching the place where the slipping has been happening, drop one word into the conversation below. Rescue. Let it stand as one small stone set on the edge of the pit you are coming up out of. Above this video, 7 brief letters are already prepared in the pinned space, one to greet each of your coming mornings, slipped into your inbox the second a quiet yes turns the latch. Take them. So here is something small you can carry into the rest of your week. The next time the suction of the situation pulls at your ankles again, and it will, because pits do not let go all at once, pause for one heartbeat and ask yourself a single question. Whose hand is under my elbow right now? Speak the question quietly. There is no need to argue with the pull. Simply ask. The answer comes back the same every time. Mine is under your elbow. Mine has been there since before you fell. Then exhale a fraction longer than you inhaled and step into the next ordinary minute. with the answer folded against the inside of your shirt. A second beat to the practice, when you have a quieter moment. After you ask the question and the answer arrives, do not bolt past it. Sit inside the answer for 3 unhurried breaths. Many among you will rush past the relief, because relief is a country you have not lived in for a long stretch. Stay in the country a little longer than feels normal. Let the chest register that the lifting has not depended on your strength. Your strength has been spent for years. The lifting was never going to come from there. The lifting has been coming from a father whose hand has not tired once. A third movement, softer still. Each time the situation seems to take a small step backward, a setback, a relapse, a piece of bad news that drops a foot back into the pit you thought you had stepped out of. Refuse to read the small step as evidence the rescue has stopped. Speak instead. In whatever volume the room allows, the lift is still in progress. That one sentence is an entire posture. It trains your inner ear to recognize that the visible up and down of the situation is not the same thing as the underlying lifting of the soul. The situation may dip. The soul keeps coming up. Both can be true at once. Both are usually true at once. Try the practice the first time, and you may feel nothing change. Try it the 10th time, and the body may still treat it as a drill. A nervous system braced against unanswered rescue for decades does not loosen in an afternoon. Yet around the 30th attempt, the pull at your ankles will begin to register as a pull rather than a verdict. Around the 50th, a whole day will pass without your rehearsing the worst version of what happens next. Around the 100th, a friend will say you seem different in this season, and you will not be able to explain it, because the change will not be anything you generated. It will be the slow, faithful, embarrassing in its quietness lifting of a father whose grip on your wrist tightened long before the situation began to swallow your ankles. For whichever of you has cried out for years without a visible answer and has begun to suspect the cry stopped arriving, hear me carefully. The cry arrived. Every one of them. None of your prayers have ever been misfiled. The silence over your situation was not the silence of an empty hall. The silence was the silence of a father who was working underneath the floor of the room and could not yet show you the load-bearing walls he was repairing. Walls being repaired make less noise than walls being demolished. The quiet was the proof of the steady. It was never the proof of the abandoned. Among you whose body itself has become the pit, illness refusing to lift on the timeline doctors hoped for, fatigue refusing to break, pain that has decided to live inside the bones it has chosen. Hear this too. The rescue I am working inside your body is not always the rescue the next scan will reveal. Some of the rescue is happening in the soul of the one inside the body. The inner room where fear has been the loudest tenant for years. I am evicting the tenant. The body may take its own time. The soul will not have to wait on the body because the soul lives in a different room of the same house, and I am at work in the soul's room every hour. Many of the most rescued souls I have known were souls whose bodies were still asking for more time, to the one whose pit was dug by another person. The violation that taught your young body that no one was coming. The betrayal that taught your adult heart that helpers were liars. The abandonment that taught your spirit that the cry rose to the ceiling and stopped. Hear this most tenderly. The person who hurt you was not me. The ceiling that absorbed your cry as a child was not me. The cry reached me. I was there in the room. I was there in the night. I have been there in every flashback since. The hand that did not come at the time you needed it most was not my hand withholding. It was the failure of a creature who should have shown up. I did show up. I show up. I am the one who has been holding what no one else thought to hold. And the holding has been going on through every dark season your memory still flinches at. For whichever of you is afraid that this rescue too will fail because every previous rescue failed, hear me. The previous rescues were not mine. They were the rescues you tried to build with your own hands, or the rescues a friend promised and could not deliver, or the rescues a system sold you for a fee and walked away from once the fee was paid. Those rescues had failure built into their materials. Mine is built of different materials. The materials of mine were tested on a hill outside Jerusalem 2,000 years ago, and they held the weight of every sinking soul that has ever asked for them since. They held the weight of a young man with spit in his beard, hiding in a cave. They will hold yours. Carry one short line with you. The arm that found you first. Stitch it into the lining of the next ordinary days you walk. Say it under your breath at the red light. Name it in the quiet at the kitchen sink. Press it against the inside of your ribs when the old fear of going under again tries to drag its chair back to your table. A line stays true, whether your weak confirms it yet or not. My arm asks for no verification. A pit floor coming up beneath your foot needs no supervision from you. Both belong to me, and mine they will stay. To the one who has been quietly comparing yourself this whole time to people whose rescues seem to be moving faster than yours, hear one more word. The visible speed of someone else's deliverance has nothing to do with the depth of my work and yours. Some pits are shallower. Some are deeper. Some have been dug across a single year. Others have been dug across generations. The depth of the pit does not measure the love of the Father lifting from it. The deeper the pit, the more of my hand has been involved in the lift, and the more steady the standing will be when you are finally on the ground above it. Do not envy the shallow rescues. Stay inside yours. Draw one slow inhale up through the nostrils. Hold it for one count. Release it without pushing, letting the exhale run a fraction longer than the inhale. A drawn-out exhale tells your nervous system that suction at the ankles is not winning. It tells the rib cage that the hand under your elbow has not let go. Such a tiny breath is the simplest ascent a body can offer to a near and patient love, and that breath reaches me carrying the weight of any longer prayer. 2 such breaths will return you, gently, back into the portion of your day set aside when you sat down to listen. You walking back into the day will be slightly different. Your room's walls will be unchanged. My hand on your wrist will be unchanged. Only your rib cage will have eased, because it will have finally absorbed what was true the entire way. The hand reaching for you was reaching before you knew the pit had a name. Amen. Whichever line here nested into a hushed corner inside you, 7 brief letters are already lined up inside the pinned space below this video. 1 to greet each of the next 7 dawns inside your inbox. Arriving the second, a soft yes unlatches the gate. Open them. Pass this along to anyone whose feet have been giving way under them. Hit subscribe so the next message reaches you before the next pull does. You were never meant to come up out of this on your own.